Welcome to another Hope Hour, where we dive into conversations and topics shaping our communities, our democracy, and our future. I'm Diana Maya, Senior Director of Programs at Hope, and today we're taking a closer look at a cornerstone of American democracy, independent journalism. In a time of deep polarization, shrinking local newsrooms, and rising misinformation, the role of an independent press has never been more critical. It informs the public, holds those in power accountable, and perhaps most importantly, amplifies the voices of those most often left out of the conversation. We have this conversation um, as the backdrop of some pretty kind of painful and fearful moment for our community in Los Angeles, but across the country. There has been an increase in anti-Latino rhetoric, highly aggressive and violent immigration raids, and what can only be described as a federal government overreach with the federalization and deployment of National Guardsmen, and Marines to Los Angeles. This is going to be about a 30-minute episode where we'll explore how journalism is evolving, why it matters, and how it can be a force for equity and civic engagement, especially for women who are shaping their communities from the ground up. Joining us today, we have someone who is getting to know this space very intimately. Michele Siqueiros, she's the new CEO of the Los Angeles Local News Initiative. Michele brings a deep background in advocacy, community engagement, and systems change. And now she's leading one of the boldest efforts to reimagine local news in Los Angeles. Together, we'll talk about the challenges and opportunities facing independent journalism, and the power of storytelling, and why thriving local news is essential to a healthy democracy, not just here in Los Angeles, but everywhere. So whether you're a news junkie, a change maker, or just curious about where we go from here, this conversation hopefully will bring you some inspiration. So let's dive in. Welcome, Michele. I'm glad we were able to make this work, especially at such a critical time for our city. Why I wanted to start by giving you a little bit of space to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, the transition you've been in over the last year or so, and how stepping into this role at this particular time for our city and for journalism, how has it inspired you and your work moving forward? And then maybe if you want to share a little bit about what your vision for the future of the initiative is, would be great.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you to the entire team at Hope, especially Helen Torres, for your leadership and work. Hispana's organizing for political equality and equity is more important and relevant than ever. So thank you for everything that you do. I am super fortunate to be the founding CEO of the LA Local News Initiative. Just before I talk a little bit more about the LA Local News Initiative, by way of background, I've spent my entire career really as an advocate and champion for representation, for issues of equity. I spent 20 years leading the Campaign for College Opportunity from its very beginnings as a new organization to building that to become the most influential statewide organization in higher education policymaking. I feel incredibly proud of the opportunity to have been a real champion for raising attention to issues of inequality and inaccessibility and lack of success for underrepresented students in higher education. And I came to that work because I was the first in my family to go to college. I'm the daughter of Mexican immigrant that arrived in Los Angeles in 1970 in search of, yes, a better life for herself and for her children, but also as a contributor to this economy and to this city and to this state. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, so I care deeply about LA, and I've been active beyond my professional wearing hat in community organizations across the city and across the state. Again, I care deeply about issues of access to equity and opportunity for communities, and have dedicated my life to that, and really see the importance of facts and information today more than ever as super critical, right? Who has access to information can literally be life-saving, right? We got through the most incredible pandemic in 2020, and many of us were searching for information about COVID, about masking, how to keep ourselves safe, how to keep our elders safe. And when vaccines became available, ensuring accurate information about vaccines and accessing vaccines. I know I was in a network of other comadres, figuring out how to get my own parents early appointments to get a vaccine to protect them from COVID. So I care deeply about making sure that everyone has access to information, that they can use that information to actively engage in our city politic, but also find resources that are helpful for them. And so I get to build that with the LA Local News Initiative, and I'm super thrilled to talk to you more about that.
Wonderful. Excited to hear about that. I hear you mentioned comadres, and it's making me think of that, tried and tested and true model of promotoras and how influential that is for a community as a trust-based as for building trust with our predominantly Spanish speaking communities, but I think throughout the city. I wonder how much of that is going to play into your model. And so I'll go into my next question, but kind of keeping that in mind, from your, I'd love to hear your perspective and opinion on how local news and independent journalism strengthens democracy, especially, as I mentioned, in those communities that are underserved and kind of misrepresented, if you will. Like I know you have an initiative in Boyle Heights that you all support, and so how are you seeing the work that you're doing directly strengthening democracy?
Well, I mean, Diana, when people have access to clear, reliable information about issues that affect their lives, right? That's when you can actually act and be engaged. And we see that when local media outlets disappear or they're not as strong in certain communities, that those communities lose their voice, right? They lose the very foundation of democracy. We also see that we're starting to really experience a huge fraying of what is real and what isn't real, what's fact, what's AI generated, what is fake. And so if we're not operating from the same sort of standard of shared facts and information and truth, how can we even have, engaged dialogue about what's happening in our world, right? We also know that when local news disappears, you really lose the watchdog reporting that ensures our elected officials are serving our interest, right? How are we going to know that there's corruption if there isn't local journalism that is uncovering that corruption? How will we know what additional vital information is happening? In Los Angeles, as a good example, right? We are amid fairly unprecedented immigration federal action in our communities. People are in need of finding out what are their rights if they are detained by federal agents or police. What is due process? How do we ensure that folks have access to lawyers and can reach back to their own family members to communicate what has happened to them, right? So all of those things are critically important, and it is local media along with community organizations and other leaders, right, that can help us lift up that information and ensure that our communities know their rights, know where they can go to help. In Boyle Heights, Boyle Heights Beat, which is a part of the LA Local News Initiative and covers Boyle Heights and the East Side, a predominantly Latino immigrant community, has been at the forefront of making sure that information around understanding your rights if you are detained, if you're a business, understanding your rights for whether or not you have to let police or federal agents into your business, right? Being very clear about information around aid. Folks are are scared, are maybe not comfortable going to work. And so there's a whole mutual aid community lifting up on the east side that is picking up groceries, taking donations to communities. How do you even know about those things? That, I always say information truly is about power, because an opportunity might exist, but if you don't know about it, it's not truly an opportunity. So I think that's where local news, media, and information is so critically important, right? To make sure that we're doing a host of things. Yes, holding government accountable. Yes, doing candidate forums that allow you to know what these candidates running and seeking your vote are interested in, so that you can decide who's the best representative for you. Knowing your rights, in this time of crises, and also knowing that there is community of support for you. All of those things are really embodied by what we're building at the LA Local News Initiative.
I love that. There's also kind of an unintended maybe aspect of this work that it really creates kind of almost a narrative shift about what Los Angeles is, who we are, and the different folks and the different communities that reside here, which is great because I often think of people when they think of LA, they think of the city, right? But it's so much more when you look at such vibrant communities like well, Boyle Heights is in within the city, but when you look at the East LA, or you look at other aspects of the county. So how many, I know I'm very familiar with Boyle Heights Beat, but how many other kind of projects are you, or other communities are you all focusing on? I'd love to know.
Yeah, we're preparing for a more public launch. So Boyle Heights Beat is an active newsroom in the community. It has been around, started as a student high school journalism project. Um, but it's been around for 15 years. The
Mhm.
last few years, really elevating the student journalism and complementing that with professional reporting, which is what you see today. And I'm super excited to share that we are building additional community newsrooms this year in South LA, Inglewood, Koreatown, Pico Union, Westlake, with hopefully a lot more to come, and also additional coverage that benefits every Angelino, whether you're in this particular neighborhood or community where we have an active newsroom. But I'm super excited by, filling a gap that really exists, right? We have strong media across Los Angeles, but this hyper local news media and information that really is relevant, and that also is, the logo for Boyle Heights Beat is from and for the community. And
Mhm.
really, that's our approach. And from and for the community means that the reporters live there, work there, look like you can relate to them, and that's really just as important to me. It's how do we build a newsroom that looks like the diversity of Los Angeles and all of its communities.
I love that. Well, I live, close to Englewood, so I can't wait to hear that, to see that operationalized. Um, I think one of the things that is really present right now in media, is kind of the changing landscape of media. We hear so often that uh, uh, people are getting their information from social media, right? And, AI generated content has kind of become this problem, even for folks who might consider themselves to be media literate. How do we reclaim journalism as a tool for kind of truth telling, in a space where we have information overload, where we have misinformation, and when those kind of tools are being, used or weaponized, against people, or to, that it's being purposefully used to misinform people. And how can local outlets, use different tools or strategies to kind of build trust across, people of different political, maybe persuasions, generations, cultural divides.
Well, I think first it's ensuring that we listen. So I think good quality information and local news um, is relevant, right? My executive editor, Kristen Muller, likes to say ruthlessly relevant to people's lives. And I think that that is core. You've got to listen to community and hear what is it that they need, what's the information that they're lacking, and how do they want to access it. So a lot of it is also making sure we are on the platforms that they want. Yes, of course, we'll have a news website. Yes, of course, we'll be on Instagram. Um, what else? Depends on what the community is telling us, where they want to access their news and information. So we're doing a lot of listening as we're exploring building the community newsrooms in the areas that I mentioned. And we've done a lot of learning from Boyle Heights Beat and their really strong engagement with community, where they are trusted because they listen to community. They're trusted because they're training local high school students to be journalists. They are trusted because the editor and the reporters that cover Boyle Heights know Boyle Heights, right? They're also trusted because beyond sort of incredibly important information about what's happening citywide that can be shared, they are very much focused on what is happening and what's the impact for Boyle Heights and East LA specifically. So the stories are really based on like their relevance to this local community. And highlighting that relevance is what creates trust. And when you're engaged in community, when people know you, when, there's not a moment where I'm walking down the street with a reporter from the Boyle Heights Beat team where somebody doesn't stop us, um, particularly because they want to talk to one of the reporters or talk about a story or give us a lead, so all of that is super critical.
You mentioned the training of high school students, which I Hope has a high school program. So we know how important their leadership in community is. What other ways are you looking to kind of democratize or include other kind of voices in the work that you're doing? Are there, women, whether it be women or elderly, right? How is that shaping up?
Well, we have launched a few months ago LA Documenters, and LA Documenters is an opportunity for anybody in the community that wants to attend public meetings and take notes on them to be trained, to get paid for going to these meetings and taking notes, and to share those notes with the public. So what's exciting about LA Documenters is that, it is the range from students that are in college to a nurse practitioner to retired senior citizens. It's like the range of LA Angelinos that care about what's happening in their community and are helping to make these public meetings that most of us, can't attend on a regular basis really accessible. So in Altadena, we have a documenter that's going to the Altadena Town Hall to report out. Also covering the LA County Board of Supervisors meetings with regards to wildfire recovery, or LA Unified School Board meetings regarding, major decisions that affect all of our students, right, and our communities. So LA Documenters is another approach, and we do regular surveying of residents. In fact, tomorrow we'll get an update survey where we've been asking our readership in Boyle Heights Beat, what is it that you want to hear from us, especially in light of this current moment, right? In terms of these federal actions, what other information and resources do you need? We've heard, pretty loud and clear that people want real-time information as to where is their immigrant action happening, where are their federal officers being spotted. So, we're listening, and then our coverage responds to that listening.
I love that exchange between your organization and the public. That's a beautiful way of serving our communities. My next question was going to be around, everything that's happening in our city, right? We started the year with some horrific natural disasters in the wildfires in the Pacific Palisades and in Altadena. And obviously, this in the last few weeks, we've been looking at immigration issues, immigration raids. And so I was going to ask how you all were meeting the moment and how your organization is kind of mobilizing to support his efforts. But and you've shared a little bit about that, but is there anything else you'd like to share in the work that you're doing around those two issues?
Well, I think it's important to be relevant, right? So certainly, we are listening to our community to hear what are the issues that are most important to them. And certainly, immigration and federal action happening across our communities is incredibly important. So a lot of our coverage is focused on that. We also, are elevating stories of local community members, business leaders, events and resources for the community. So a lot of that is going to happen alongside the breaking news, right? That we are also trying to be responsive to. On the wildfire recovery, a good example, obviously Boyle Heights Beach is relatively far from Altadena, where the wildfires, and Pacific Palisades, where the wildfires did the most damage. But it doesn't mean that our communities are not impacted, whether it's by the air quality, and addressing that became a prime issue of focus. Ensuring that community members had access to air purifiers was a big deal. And also the impact in terms of jobs lost. So there are real economic impacts for residents of Boyle Heights who work in either Altadena, Pasadena, or in the Palisades. And so covering those stories so they're relevant to, again, the neighborhood.
Um, that's wonderful to hear. I think one of the conversations we've been hearing a lot is, the redirecting of resources to certain communities and how that will all shape up. I'm excited as you all are ramping up to see the work that you produce. I'm interested to know if there are other models that you have looked at in different cities for something similar to this.
Yeah, thankfully, there are a lot of models for building local community nonprofit newsrooms across the country. We were launched here in Los Angeles as part of the American Journalism Project, and so they have supported the building of local community newsrooms everywhere. In California, we have Cityside, which covers Berkeley side, Oakland side, Richmond side, in the Bay Area, is kind of our peer organization. San Diego also has a nonprofit newsroom where they do investigative reporting. So there's really strong examples across the state. There's the Central Valley Media Collaborative, and again, they're working together to elevate stories important and relevant to the Central Valley. The Inland Empire has a great initiative as well. So there are examples and models of this across the country. I was really fortunate early in my tenure to sit down and visit Block Club Chicago, which is very similar to us, a big city, real diverse, lots of neighborhoods. And
Yeah.
so we really went there looking for inspiration and learning, right, about how they're doing it, how they're covering all the different neighborhoods, and then also how they're covering Chicago broadly. LA is a set of many communities, so our big challenge is how do we cover as many communities as possible, centering the communities that are least covered and least at the table when it comes to media. Also was fortunate to visit Indianapolis, and Mirror Indy is really young. They're a year and a half old, but incredible newsroom that has launched to serve the community in Indianapolis. So there's lots of really exciting examples across the country that give me a lot of hope. A lot of the news around what's happening in media is generally pretty depressing in terms of, we have fewer reporters than ever in our country's history. We have fewer, reporters locally, than we've ever had as well. And so I feel like this is the right antidote to what's happening nationally.
Mhm. I love that. So I have only a few more questions. The last question I want to end with, and so I'll say it now because I want to give you some time to think about it. It's more on the personal side. So you've had a fantastic career at the Campaign for College Opportunity, and now you're launching on this, ambitious and very much needed initiative. But I'd love to hear from you about when you are done your legacy to be. So we'll close with that. My next question to you is going to be, um, what do you want listeners of this conversation to walk away with, um, knowing or understanding about independent journalism, and how they can participate?
Nice. Um, well, I think what I would want all of you to know about independent journalism is just how critical it is, how foundational it is for all of the issues that we care about. Going back to my earlier point, right? If you don't know about it, how could you possibly act about it? So whether you care about, you know, um, education or the arts or justice reform, whatever your issue, your passion is, it requires independent journalism. It requires independent journalism to help inform community. It requires independent journalism to help engage community. And it requires independent journalism to ensure that people in power are held accountable and are acting in our best interest as residents, as voters, as community members. So having independent journalism is critical. How can you participate? I think you can participate by supporting local journalism in your community, but also by sharing information, right? I always tell folks when I'm asked is don't wait for media to come to you. Make sure that you're local, you're communicating with media, you're being a resource as well. It really is a two-way street, right? That you're sharing information, that you're part of the listening that media does as well, so that you can help inform and make the coverage better. And I think all of us need to be responsible when we're sharing information, right? That because there is so much that is out there that isn't accurate, that we are verifying, that we are saying, "Oh, that doesn't quite seem right." So maybe we go to the Snopes website to actually verify if it's true or not, right? And especially now with AI, I think, AI is incredibly valuable and powerful tool, and also can be used, right, in ways that are pretty harmful in terms of blurring blurring the lines between what is real and what is not, and that can be very distressing.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that you want to leave us with, anything you want to share before we have our final question?
I would want to leave you with I'm trying to think about so many things during this particular moment, but I would say that, it's separate from, my current role as CEO. I think I want to make sure that we're all taking care of each other, that we are, seeking out support when we need it, uh, time with our friends, with our family, with our community, because it is an incredibly challenging and heartbreaking time. So um, I'm saying it to all of you, but also saying it to myself, like the importance of really taking care of ourselves and reflecting on the challenges and not getting not getting immobilized by everything that's happening around us, and like not giving up our power.
Yeah.
Because there is still so much. We can't do everything, but we can each do something. And that something should include self-care, and that something should include doing whatever it is that you can, right, on the issues that you care about for the people that you care about, and making sure that you're doing that in a way that fills your cup.
Yeah, joy is definitely a tool of resistance for sure. All right, our final question, Michelle. When you are done, when you look back at the end of your career, what would you like your legacy to be?
That's a great question. I think the only thing I really want my legacy to be is that what I did made this world a bit better, you know. Um, I I care deeply about our community. I care deeply about justice and equity and ensuring that everyone is respected and given the opportunity to succeed in the world. And I feel like I've championed that my entire life. I continue to champion that in this current role. And so if my legacy is just, the world was slightly better because she was in it, I think that is enough. Um, if it's also, she brought people together, she was a good mother, a good daughter, then that will be enough.
That. Well, thank you for spending the last 30 or so minutes with us, Michelle. Really grateful for your time and for this conversation. Should we follow the LA Local News Initiative anywhere?
Yes, we will be announcing our new name and our public website. But for now, you can definitely follow Boyle Heights Beat on Instagram is the best bet to get any Boyle Heights East LA related news. Online, we're at www.localnewsforla.org. And when we get a new name, you'll still be able to go there, there through this website. So follow us on Instagram, follow us on the web, sign up for our newsletters and updates, and you'll know the latest.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much and have a good rest of your day. Ciao.
Thanks, Deanna. You too.